Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Jaded Blossom's June 2026 release is now available, and it includes a new gnome friend. Here's a quick peek at the June release. Lots of great items, stamps, dies, and stencils. You can always save by purchasing the full release bundle, and I do have links in the description box below. I'll start with the horseshoe stencil set. This is currently not available individually. It's a freebie you'll receive if you purchase at least $50 worth of product, and one item must be from the new release. This is for a limited time and while supplies last. Next is a stencil set called Whimsical Cactus, and this is a two-piece stencil set. So one has the cactus and the little dots, and the other has the stars and moons. Next up is a die set. This is a new gnome friend. It's the horse. There's also the stamp set with the horse faces. So you can either use the stamps for the faces or the dies included on the set for the faces. There are two different positions of the horse. There's one standing and one sitting. And to go along with the new horse friend, there is a sentiment set called Hey Thanks. There are also coordinating outline dies. And I've already removed the products from the original packaging, and I have them on some magnetic sheets. These do not come with the products. This stamp set has lots of great sentiments, and it's always fun to have the outline dies to cut them out. And I forgot to mention, with the new horse friend die set, you can also turn the horse into a unicorn. Next up is the Saloon Die set. This is a fairly large image, but it does fit nicely on an A2 size card. In addition to the front swinging doors of the saloon, there's also a wanted poster, and you can add a gnome face on it. There are 3 small stars that you can decorate the top of the saloon sign, but you could also use those as embellishments. There's a new gnome add-on set. This one's called Southwestern, and there are tons of different items on this set. It includes cowboy boots, a new cowboy hat, there's a bag of money, some pistols, dynamite, a scorpion, there's another wanted poster, and also a bull skull. To go with this new die set, there's a stamp and coordinating outline set called Wanted. Lots of really fun sentiments. Wishing you a sensational birthday, looking sharp for your age. Yeehaw, it's your birthday. Wanted, you're my favorite outlaw. Happy birthday, partner, and more. Jaded Blossom never disappoints with their fun stamp sentiment sets. The final item is a die set, and it's a new addition to their Scenic dies. This is their Southwestern set, and I love this set so much. This set includes several different cactus images. There's a sun, some rocks, and then several different landscape items, 2 that include a fun red rock feature. If you are interested in any items from the new release, they are linked in the description box below. I have 5 different card designs to share with you, so let's go ahead and get started with card design number 1. This card focuses on the new Southwestern Scenic die set. I cut out 2 landscape pieces. For that front sand piece, I used an orangish red cardstock color. And for the red rock piece, this is a reddish brown cardstock color. I'm adding a little bit of ink along the edges of each piece. For the sand piece, I use Distress Oxide Crackling Campfire color. And for the red rock, I use Distress Oxide Fired Brick. And I'm doing all the inking on a magnetic glass mat from GLASSBOARD Studio. I own several magnetic glass mats from GLASSBOARD Studio, and this is my favorite color right now. It's a popular pink sparkle in the 13.5 by 18 inch size. And if you're interested in any products from GLASSBOARD Studio, I do have a discount code with them. Save 15% with my code Kristie. For the background of my card, I'm using some light blue cardstock, and this will be the sky. I cut it to A2 size, 5.5 inches by 4.25 inches. I'll add the larger red rock piece down first, using 2 different adhesives, some ATG, and also Barely Art glue. Just want to make sure it lays down nice and flat. Next, I'll add the sand piece in front. And I did place an acrylic block on top of that reddish background piece. It has more of that stitch detail, and I just want to make sure it adheres down. I've already die cut out the rest of the pieces to create this fun Southwestern scene. And I put all the pieces in a small stack and sort tray from scrapbook.com. I am inking up just the top of the cacti. I'm using Distress Oxide Rustic Wilderness color. Now the larger cactus images have several pieces, but there's also a really small cactus piece that's just one piece. And even though I did use 2 different shades of green cardstock, I'm still using the same ink color for all the cacti. To hold the ink pad in place, I'm using a MagInk Tray from GLASSBOARD Studio. And since it's not really designed to hold a square ink pad, I also have one of their MiniPawn Magnets on top. I have a few more die cut pieces. I want to add a little bit of ink, so I'll clean up the green ink from my mat and pull out the 3 different rocks. And I'm just using the leftover ink on the blending brush for those 3 die cut pieces. So now I'll wipe down my magnetic glass mat again. And now it's time to add my card front onto a card base. I'll put ATG tape on the back and adhere it in place. And I always adhere it upside down, at least it looks upside down in the video. I start with the top edge of the card front and adhere it on the folded edge of my card base, which is always at the top, whether it's horizontal or vertical. Next, I'll assemble the different cactus images. I use the same green cardstock color for that background piece. It will all be covered up, so you could always use a different colored cardstock. But since I'm using scrap pieces anyway, I decided to just cut it out from that same green. I'll add the tall middle piece down first and then the 2 side areas. For the different style cactus, I'll add that larger piece down, and before adhering the smaller one, which will be in front and on the right, I am adding a scrap piece of cardstock. That way it stays at the same level. After adding that small scrap piece, I'll adhere the smaller cactus piece in front. This cactus image also has a flower on top, and I cut out both flowers from some very pale pink cardstock. So once I have all the cacti images adhered down, I'll start adding them on the card. The largest cactus will go on the very right side. The 2 smaller cactus images will go behind the sand hill on the left side. And since I've already adhered it down, I did use the edge of my tweezers to make sure there was enough space to tuck in the base of the cactus. I will overlap them just slightly. For the large cactus on the right side, I am popping it up using some foam dimension, but I'm only adding foam squares behind the top area of the cactus. I'll put glue behind the base. The foam squares I'm using are the small foam squares in the 1mm thickness, and these are from scrapbook.com. In front of the large cactus on the right side, I'll also add one of the rocks. Then I'll add the double cactus image next to the larger cactus, just on the left side of it. And I did pop up that image with foam dimension as well. Now I'll add the final cactus image on the very left side, putting more foam dimension behind the top area. I did cut some of the small foam squares in half to fit behind the narrow areas of this cactus image. I'll put the largest rock next to that cactus and then the smallest rock right in front of the larger rock. In addition to the Southwestern Scenic die set, I'm also adding a few images from the Spring Scenic die set, and that's the 3 cloud images. I'll put one in the upper left-hand corner, a smaller one next to it on the right side, and then another small cloud in the upper right-hand corner. This fun sun image is from the Southwestern Scenic die set, and I'll adhere that down next. The final image I'll add to this scene is the bull skull. So there's one piece that's the very background, and I use the same light gray cardstock for the back piece and the 3 individual pieces. Before the glue dries completely, I'll make sure those front die cut pieces are lined up perfectly with the background piece. After adhering all those die cut pieces together, I'll flip it over, grab the small foam squares again. I'll add some of the half squares behind the horns. We'll remove the release paper and add the skull on the front area of the card. For several of the cards, I decided not to add a sentiment on the outside. Instead, I've stamped it on the inside. Wishing you a sensational birthday. I love how this turned out. It's such a different look than what I'm used to in Western Washington. Now moving on to card design number 2. For this card, I'll be assembling a boy gnome, and he's wearing the new cowboy hat and cowboy boots. I already have a part of him assembled. I have that background piece, added the beard and mustache, and I did trim off the little foot nubs since I'll be adding boots instead of the bare feet or bottom of shoe options. For the cowboy hat, I use dark brown cardstock and a lighter brown for the band of the cowboy hat. The bottom curve of the cowboy hat matches perfectly with that top curve of the beard piece, so you know this is where to add the hat. Now the background piece I used to assemble the gnome has the original gnome hat, and you can see it does not match at all with a cowboy hat, so I will need to trim off that top area. Then I'll put glue on the back, adhere the hat in place. Next, I'll add the nose, and I am popping it up using more of the small foam squares. So just adding that nose, you can already see that gnome coming to life. For the cowboy boots, I did skip one step. There's another die image. It's a boot, but it also includes that little area for the spurs. Now you can use it, or you can just skip to the piece that I'm using. For the heel and soles of the boots, I use a very dark brown cardstock. I have the gnome flipped over. I'll put some clear double-sided adhesive tape at the very bottom of the beard, and this is where I'll be attaching the boots. But I almost forgot to add the little spur piece, and I used some silver mirror cardstock for that piece. Now it is easier to line up that spur piece if you cut out the other background piece of the boots. I'll add the other spur piece on the second boot. Now I'll line them up on the grid of my mat to make sure they're at an even placement and add the gnome on top. Then I'll hold those in place with another piece of clear double-sided adhesive tape. Next, I'll assemble the two pistols. So one faces right, the other faces left. I use some gray cardstock for that very background piece, silver cardstock for the main pistol area, including the trigger, and then some wood grain cardstock for the handle of the pistols. The silver cardstock I'm using for most of the pistol is a silver satin mirror, so it's not super shiny, it just has that subtle shine to it. The silver cardstock I use for the spurs is a silver mirror, so it's super shiny. I always save small scrap pieces of specialty cardstock, since sometimes all you need is a little bit, especially when you're assembling fun die-cut images from Jaded Blossom. I'll attach the handle on each of the pistols and then finally the little trigger piece. Since most of Jaded Blossom's dies include that background piece, they make it very easy to assemble the different images. So once both of the pistols are assembled, now I'll attach the hand. And I know this isn't exactly how you would hold a pistol, but it works so well for the gnome. Now I'll flip them over, put foam dimension on the back, and I will need to cut a couple of those squares in half to fit behind the narrow areas. I used some scrap cardstock for that light gray background piece since I knew it would be covered up. And I'm not sure where this is from, but it has black on the other side. I'm also adding the sheriff badge, and I use some gold satin mirror cardstock for that star. I'll put glue on the back, adhere it on the right side of the hat. Then I'll remove the release paper and add each of the pistols in front of the gnome. So there is the cowboy gnome all assembled. And I've already put together the background scene using the Southwestern Scenic dies, this time on a vertical card. I'll flip over the gnome, put foam dimension on the back, but only behind the hat area since it'll go right in between the two cacti. I'll put glue behind the rest of the gnome and adhere them on the left side of the card. Once the gnome was adhered down, I noticed the left side of the hat was drooping down just a bit, so I will pop a small foam square underneath. And just like the first card, I decided to put the sentiment on the inside. Hands up, it's time to celebrate. So there is my finished card, and I did make two using this design. For card design number 3, we're going with some different colors. For the very background, I'm using the same blue cardstock. This will be the sky. And instead of the red rock and sand, I'll be adding a grassy hill. The grass border die and the hill die are both from Jaded Blossom's Spring Scenic die set. And I used a tone-on-tone green polka dot pattern paper from, I believe it's a retired Simple Stories collection. Before adhering the shorter hill, I did put a scrap piece of cardstock behind it just to pop it up a little bit. I didn't want to add foam dimension. I think the cardstock layer is enough. This card will feature Jaded Blossom's Barn die set. Figure that went perfectly with their new gnome horse friend. I used red cardstock for the main barn, a light brown cardstock for the roof, and also the area behind the main doors. And for the trim on the doors and the window, I used white cardstock. The piece that goes behind the window is an even lighter tan cardstock color, and I just pulled a bunch of scraps for most of my die cut pieces. This barn is super cute and very easy to assemble. I'll add the door pieces on the red barn, and what's really fun is you can actually open up the doors since it is cut out on the top and between the two doors. Now I'll add the frame on the window, put glue on the back and adhere it at the top of the barn. And the barn die set also includes the little image so you can add a pile of hay. I'll put glue on the back of the hay and adhere it on the ledge of the window. So there's the barn all assembled, and I'll be adhering it on the left side of the card. It is a fairly large image, but you can see it still fits on an A2 size card. I am putting foam dimension on the back, but only behind the top area that goes above the grassy hill. And I'm using scrapbook.com's 1/4 inch black foam in the 1mm thickness. I'll also be adding a few clouds. I'll put 2 on the right side of the barn and 1 on the left side. And I'm not adhering the barn down until I attach the clouds. That way part of the cloud will be tucked behind the barn. Now I'll remove the release paper from the foam, put glue behind the rest of the barn, and adhere it in place. So now it's time to assemble the new gnome horse friend. This is another adorable image. Jaded Blossom has a wide range of gnome friends, so if you're not a fan of the gnomes, check out their gnome friends. For the horse, I use 3 different shades of brown cardstock. The very background piece will be covered up completely. I'm assembling the horse that's standing on 2 legs. For the horse's head, there are several different pieces. There's one that includes the mane, there's one that's just the head and the ears, and there's also one that's just the head. And there are actually 2 pieces that are just the head. One has the stitching for the nose, the other just has the stitching around it, and that's the ideal one if you're going to use the horse face stamps. For this horse, I'm using the die pieces for the face, but you will see some later on using the stamp faces. For the horse's mane, I used a darker brown cardstock. For the ears, the nose, and the belly of the horse, I'm using a lighter brown cardstock color. For the body and legs of the horse, there are 2 pieces. One includes the hooves at the bottom, the other is just the body and legs, and it leaves that little opening at the bottom so you can add the hooves. And I cut those out from black cardstock. The hoof pieces for the legs standing and the legs holding an object are different sizes, and you'll know once you try to adhere them on that background piece. I use the same dark brown cardstock for the hair on the top of the head and also the tail. And there are a few different options for that hair at the top. For the inside of the ears, I'm using a very pale pink color. The placement for the inside of the ears is based on the angle at the bottom, whether you put it on the right or left side. And now I'll assemble the eyes. I use white and black cardstock, and I'm putting them so that highlight area is more on the inside facing the nose. For the horse's nose, there's a solid piece. That oval looks like one of the gnomes' noses. And there's also a piece that has the holes for the nostril and the stitched mouth. I used black cardstock for the solid, then adhered the 2 ovals together. That way those nostrils really stand out with that black cardstock behind it. I will put foam dimension behind the nose and adhere it in place. Next, I'll add the eyes, put glue on the back and adhere them down. I'll add the eye on the right side first, then the left side. And before the glue dries completely, I'm using my tweezers to nudge the left eye in place. That way they're evenly spaced. Now I'll work on the front legs, and these are really short, so you can have the horse hold an object. So there's the one background piece. I cut this out from brown cardstock. Then brown cardstock for the fur area of the leg and black cardstock for the hooves. Before attaching those front legs, I'll adhere the tail. And there are 2 different options of tails. You can have one on the left or one on the right. I'll put just a tiny drop of glue at the end of the tail and place the horse on top. So I have the tail on the left side. This horse will be holding a pile of hay. And the hay image is the same one I put in the window on the barn. I'll attach the legs on the right and left side of the hay, flip it over, put foam dimension on the back. I'll remove the release paper, then add the legs with the bundle of hay in front of the horse. For a sentiment, I've already stamped and cut out "Hey, thanks," and I did pop it up using more foam dimension. I'll remove the release paper and add this sentiment in the lower left-hand corner. Now it's time to adhere this adorable horse. Before adhering it down, I'll put some thicker foam dimension on the right side of the horse's head, just the area that goes off of the barn image. And this foam is about a 2mm thickness. I'll remove the release paper, then add a 1mm foam square behind the left ear that sits on the barn. I'll put glue behind the body and adhere the horse on the right side of the card. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I think the horse is the perfect new addition to the Gnome Friend family. Now moving on to card design number 4. This card features the new horseshoe stencil set on some light teal cardstock. I used this stencil with Simon Hurley's Astro Paste. This is the unicorn horn color. It's translucent with holographic glitter. Once it dries, it has this gorgeous sparkle. And even though there is glitter, it's all sealed, so it will not make a mess. Across the card, I'm adding a light pink cardstock banner. This piece is 5 1/4 of an inch by 1 1/4 of an inch. And on that strip, I'm adding 2 wavy border die cuts, and these are from Jaded Blossom's Border Die Set number 1. I used 2 different shades of purple cardstock. I did leave the borders just a little bit longer. After adhering them down, I simply flipped over the pink strip and trimmed off the overhang. To adhere the pink strip down, I use ATG tape and also glue, since I am adhering it on the background that has the Astro Paste. The stenciled background piece is 5 1/4 of an inch by 4 inches, and I'm layering it on some dark teal cardstock, and that piece is an additional 1/8 of an inch, so 5 3/8 of an inch by 4 1/8 of an inch. This card will feature a unicorn image. On the left side of the card, I'm adding a dark teal Scallop Circle die cut, and this die is from Jaded Blossom. It's about 3 inches in diameter. Before adhering it down, I put foam dimension behind the top area and glue on the bottom portion. I've already assembled most of the unicorn since it's exactly like the horse, other than adding the horn. Now this unicorn is sitting. Instead of the standing horse I added on the previous card, so I thought I would show those front legs. I also used the horse face stamp set for this sweet little unicorn. The main headpiece doesn't have the stitching for the nose. I first stamped the face, mainly focusing on the eyes, then I added the nose and stamped it again. Since the unicorn is sitting, you'll see the bottom of the feet. I used black cardstock for the hooves, and since you will see the bottom of the unicorn's feet, it will need some shoes. I used a gray glitter holographic cardstock from my stash, since unicorns need that little extra sparkle. The white of the unicorn, I used some white shimmer cardstock. Then I have the 2 purple cardstock colors that I use for the wavy border. The hair, mane, and tail are the darker purple, and then the belly is the lighter purple. For the inside of the ears, I use more light pink cardstock. This unicorn has the mane on the left side, so I'll add the tail on the right side, and I used a different hair top piece than I did for the horse. Next, I'll add the front legs. Glue on the back, adhere them down, trying to make sure to get them evenly spaced. And then the final step is the unicorn's horn, and I use some silver holographic paper so it's super sparkly. For a sentiment, I've already stamped and cut this out. be a unicorn in a field full of horses. I have foam dimension on the back. I'll remove the release paper and add the sentiment in the upper right-hand corner. I put foam dimension behind the unicorn and I'll add her on the stitched circle die cut, and I'm placing her at the bottom so it looks more like a halo going around the unicorn. For a final finishing touch, I added 3 heart shape sprinkles from Doodlebug Design around the unicorn. Now moving on to card design number 5. This card is really fun. It features the new Saloon Die set. For the main piece, I use brown cardstock. This will all be covered up, so you can use any color. For the swinging doors and the 2 side pieces, I use the same dark brown cardstock. And for the 2 swinging doors, there is that background piece. So again, this will all be covered up. I'll start by adding the frame on the doors, and then the inside boards I used a lighter brown cardstock color, and this is the same color I'm using for the sign. Now when I cut out those inside boards of the doors, I kept them together. I put a piece of scrapbook.com's mint tape on the back to help keep them together. The 3 bottom boards are exactly the same size, so it really didn't make a difference, and the top 2 pieces will only go in one spot. But having them all in the correct order does make it a little quicker for assembly. So I have the 1 door finished, now I'll work on the second one. After adding those top 2 boards, I'll add the final 3. And I'm basically inlaying them inside the frame. So there are the front of the doors all assembled. Set those aside, grab the main background piece. I'll add the sign at the top, and then the 2 side boards. And I forgot to check if the 2 side board pieces are exactly the same size. But if you want to make sure to get them in the correct placement, just look at the wood grain faux stitching on each of them, since they are different. I'll put glue on the back and adhere each of those pieces in place. Now it's time to add the front of the swinging doors. Put glue on the back, line them up with the very background. And you can make these doors open up, which is really fun. At the very top of the sign, there's that faux stitch detail for the stars, so you know exactly where to place them. I decided to use some light yellow cardstock for all 3 stars. The set also has the hinges for the swinging doors. Now, if you want your doors to open, make sure to place them inside enough. You can always test it by opening up the door. For the hinges, I use some silver mirror cardstock. The card I'm making, I will have those swinging doors open and we'll be adding a gnome inside. I have just 1 more hinge to attach. And I also need to add the Saloon word. You can see the sign already has that faux stitch detail for the letters. When you use the Saloon die piece, the placement of the letters is exactly in the same position that will match up with the sign. So once I cut them out, I put a piece of mint tape on the back. So you can see I have all the letters together. I just need to put glue on the back and place the letters at the top of the sign. Now the glue has not dried completely, so I'm being very careful to remove the mint tape. So there's the door for the saloon, and I will be popping it up using foam dimension. This time I'm using the 1/4 inch foam in the 2mm thickness. I'll add a piece on the 2 sides and the top of the sign, and then that lower portion of the sign, I'm adding a 1mm foam strip. So now it's time to assemble the gnome that will be behind the doors of the saloon, and I had to go with a girl gnome. I've already assembled part of her. She'll be wearing a pink cowboy hat or cowgirl hat. She has a light pink dress. Already attached her face. I'll add the hat next, then her nose. And this is a red-headed girl gnome. I'll put glue on the bag, adhere the 2 hair pieces down. I do need to lift up the hat just a little bit, add more glue. So there's the one side of the hair. Now I'll add the piece on the other side. And I like to add the nose first, that way I can get the 2 hair pieces evenly placed. Now I'll flip her over, put some clear double-sided tape on the back just to hold all those pieces together until the glue dries completely. Never hurts to have a little extra adhesive. I'll remove the release paper. Then I'll add more tape at the bottom of her dress. And this is where I'll be attaching her pink cowgirl boots. I'll lay both of the boots on my mat, trying to get them evenly spaced, then press the girl gnome on top. And I'll add another piece of tape on the back side at the top of the boots. I'll set her aside for now and assemble 2 items. These are both included on the Southwestern Gnome add-on set. One is the bandana that she'll be putting over her face, since this girl gnome is robbing the saloon. I used some petite print pattern paper from Doodlebug for the bandana. And on the girl gnome, this bandana is really large. I think it fits a bit better on the boy gnome with the big beard. So that's why I gave her the curly hair. So I think it still works. Next, I'll assemble the bag of money. I use craft cardstock for the bag, a dark teal for the $sign, and dark brown for the tie of the bag. After assembling the bag of money, I'll attach her hands on the right and left side. Now I'll put glue on the back and add the bag of money in front of the gnome. And I'm adhering it at a slight angle. So there's our girl gnome robber. I've already assembled the background of my card. I used some pattern paper from an older 49 and Marcotte collection for the main background, and a narrow strip of a wood grain design from Honeybee Stamp's Grain and Grunge collection. I'll place the saloon piece down, not adhering it yet. Put glue on the back of the robber gnome and adhere her in place. Then I'll remove the release paper from the foam and add the saloon piece right on top of the girl gnome. So when you open the doors, you'll see the little robber. For this card, I'm not adding any embellishments or sentiments on the outside. Instead, I stamped a sentiment on the inside. You're my favorite outlaw. This card was so much fun to make. I love that you can make the saloon doors open. Now with all the different layers and the 2mm foam, this is a fairly thick card, so you would need to pay additional postage to mail it. With the introduction of a new gnome friend, Jaded Blossom also has the horse MDF pieces, and there are the 2 different options, the stand or the hang tag ring. I have the horse with the hang tag ring and 2 unicorns with the stand. And with America celebrating our 250th birthday this year, I had to make a patriotic unicorn. Now here's another look at the 13 cards and projects I made using Jaded Blossom's brand new June 2026 release. This is another really fun release from Jaded Blossom. I love the new Southwestern Scenic dies. We have the Gnome Friend horse, plus lots of other dies, stamps, and stencil sets. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links in the description box below. Jaded Blossom never disappoints with their amazing products. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.